teases of what's coming on later in the book. This is chapter 3, called Hello. Mama never had a job, and Bernadette didn't work either. I was the only one in my family who was ever employed. When I turned 9, I began to babysit twice a week for the Chudikoff twins, who lived on the 6th floor. Mrs. C gave violin lessons to the neighborhood kids, and I watched her kids for $2.50 an hour while she did it. I made $10 a week. Now, it seemed like a lot of money at the time, but of course it was nowhere near enough for Mama and me to live on. Every month, like clockwork, Bernie heard from the gas company, the electric company, the phone company, and the landlord. But Mama and I never got even one bill. We didn't have a phone, but we had a decent-sized 2-bedroom apartment with heat and electricity running through it, just like everybody else. We just weren't paying for it. If Mama and I aren't paying, doesn't that mean we're stealing? I asked Bernadette one day. Well, I guess some people might think so, but I think of it differently, Heidi. Some people fall through the cracks in life and end up living in cardboard boxes on the street. You and your Mama just fell through a luckier set of cracks, is all. It was Bernadette who first discovered my lucky streak. We were playing a new game she'd ordered for me called Memory. It's made up of little cardboard cards with pictures on them, and when you mix them up and turn face down on the table. The idea is to take turns flipping over cards 2 by 2, trying to find matching pairs. It's supposed to test your memory by making you try to recall where you saw the kitty or the umbrella the last time, so you can turn over the same card again when you find the match for it later on somewhere else. For me, though, memory had nothing to do with it. On my very first turn, I flipped up the center card. It was a yellow duck. Then, for no particular reason, I decided to flip up the card in the upper left-hand corner. There was the other yellow duck. Well, lucky guess, Bernadette said. Only I did that same thing 20 more times in a row. Bernadette never even got a turn. Every guess I made was lucky. Never had to test my memory because I found all the matches without missing once. It was easy. I didn't even have to think about it. Just reached out, turned over card after card, making perfect matches. Well, how in the world did you do that, Heidi-ho? Bernadette asked, looking at the cards and stroking her chin. I didn't know how I'd done it, but when she shuffled the cards and set them on the table face down, did it all over again. Well, I'll be hornswoggle, Bernadette said. I'm not psychic. I can't tell the future or see things that are happening somewhere else or talk to people who've died. I know, because after the lucky memory games, Bernadette tested me on all that. I explained to her and again that I didn't see the matches in my head. I guessed where they might be. It wasn't anything fancy like ESP. I was just plain lucky. One place my luck came in very handy was at the Sudsy Duds laundromat on the corner. There was a slot machine in the back near the bathrooms, and I had a real sweet way with it. Even though Bernadette hated to send me down there, I had to go to the Sudsy Duds fairly regularly. My babysitting money only went so far as the grocery store. Now, a slot machine, we don't have them in Washington just around everywhere, but this story is taking place in Nevada, and they do have them everywhere. But a slot machine is you put a coin in, and then you pull the handle down, and if the 3 fruits match up on the, they spin around, then you'll win money. So Heidi is very good at this game. Bernadette wouldn't have hesitated to give me or Mama the last drop of water she had if we'd all been dying of thirst in the desert, but she didn't have any money to spare. Before Mama and I came to Reno, Bernie had lived in her apartment with her father, just the 2 of them. On the night of his 75th birthday, they went out to a diner for supper. He ate a pot roast sandwich and 2 slices of yellow cake, and on the way home, he dropped dead of a heart attack. I used to think that was something that made me and Bernadette alike, the fact that neither one of us had a father. But there was a big difference. I didn't miss mine. I'd never met him. I didn't know his name. I never even thought about him. But Bernadette missed her dad. It was right after he died that she came down with her AP. Bernie's dad left her some money. It wasn't much, but she kept it in the bank and called it her nest egg, and it was enough for her to get by on. When we needed extra cash for food or for something out of the ordinary, like a new part for the vacuum cleaner, my luck was the tin can we used to bail out our boat and keep us afloat. You know how I hate to send you down there, but as long as you don't abuse your gift, Heidi, or God forbid get caught, I don't believe it's a sin for you to play the slots. Bernie used to say whenever I went down to the Sudsy Duds. Not so long as there's a good reason for it. The day I send you down there to try to charm enough change out of that machine to deck me out in a mink stole, that'll be the day I deserve to be struck by lightning, no questions asked. I wasn't exactly sure what Bernadette meant by abusing my gift, but I knew all about how not to get caught. It's illegal for a minor to gamble in Reno, but there were ways to get around that. I was always tall for my age, and since Bernie was pretty short, by the time I was 10, I was able to wear most of her clothes, even her shoes. A lot of Bernie's blouses and dresses were old and faded with mismatched buttons and safety-pinned zippers. Hems were usually tacked up with staples because it was faster than needle and thread. I'd stand on a chair in whatever outfit we'd picked out for me, and Bernie would walk around me with the stapler, taking quick tucks here and there until things fit right. My hair was thick and dark and impossibly curly. Sometimes it got so knotted the only way to get a comb through it was to snip out the snarls with a nail clipper. I wished my hair could be straight like Bernie's. When hers was loose, she could tuck the ends under herself and actually sit on it. I tried to grow mine long like that too, but for some reason it never seemed to make it past my shoulder blades. Bernie combed and brushed my hair for me every morning and again each night before bed. She called it my wild mane, and we joked that she was the only one who was really able to tame it. When I needed to pay a visit to Sudsy Duds, she would sit me down in a kitchen chair and give me a do. She'd pull it back flat against my head, twist it, and pin it up into a hairdo she called a cruller. Just like Tippi Hedren in The Birds, she told me. With my hair up, wearing one of Bernie's dresses and a pair of pumps, that's a pair of shoes, a high-heeled shoes, all I needed was a touch of lipstick to complete the look. Fly under the radar, Heidi, Bernadette would say as she tied a flimsy scarf over my hair to keep the wind from blowing it loose. And remember, baby, listen to the eyes. Bernie believed the only way to tell if a person could be trusted was to listen to what the eyes told you. People have all kinds of tricky ways to keep you from seeing who they really are, Heidi, but trust me, the eyes give them away every time, she'd say. Bernie saw all kinds of things in people's eyes I never would have noticed. She maybe practiced by looking at pictures of faces in magazines. To me, they always looked like perfectly nice people, but then Bernie would show me how I'd missed a certain mean glimmer or a hooded lid that should have tipped me off right away about the person's shady nature. I always won when I went to the Sudsy Duds, enough to cover whatever we needed. I would bring home my winnings, and Bernie would run hot soapy water in the sink and wash all the money. She washed every bit of cash that came into the house, paper and coins both. You never know where it's been or who might have touched it along the way, she'd say. I loved the way the green bills looked when she hung them over the shower rod to dry. And when I brought home nickels, she would scrub them with the dish brush until they gleamed, and then she'd dump them out on a big towel on the kitchen table to dry, after which I would carefully turn them all heads up. It's good luck for them to match, I'd say. If you say so, Heidi-ho, you're certainly the expert on luck around this house. Lord knows that lucky streak of yours explains a lot, Bernadette often said. What does it explain? I'd ask. How you and your mama came to be standing outside my door way back when, that's what she'd say. How did we? I'd ask, even though I'd heard the story more times than I could count. Excuse me. We don't know exactly when my birthday is. Oh, I might need to make sure I have some water here next time. We don't know exactly when my birthday is because I don't have a birth certificate. And Mama didn't even know when her own birthday was, let alone mine. So we celebrated on February 12th, because as close as we could figure, I was about a week old on February 19th, which is when Bernadette found Mama and me standing in the hallway outside her door. The way she told it, she heard this pitiful sound and thought that one of her cats had gotten out somehow and couldn't get back in. She opened the door a crack and saw Mama standing there in her raincoat, her bare legs spattered with dried mud. And she saw me wrapped in a blanket, crying. I don't remember it at all, of course, but I heard Bernadette tell the story so many times, I feel as though I do. She said she never saw a sorrier sight in her life. She opened the door a little while wider, and Mama and I walked into her apartment and straight into her heart forever. That's how Bernie told it anyway. Mama handed me to Bernie, along with an empty baby bottle and a can of powdered formula, and then she went and sat down in the big blue chair by the window, waiting there with her right arm kind of crooked and the left one resting in her lap, just as though she was holding an invisible baby. I was not the sweetest smelling child she'd ever run across, so Bernadette ran warm water in the kitchen sink and gave me a bath. She didn't have any diapers around, of course, so she fashioned one for me from a tea towel and a couple of pieces of duct tape. After she'd cleaned me up, she held me while she made my bottle, then took me to Mama and slipped me right into her perfectly positioned waiting arms. Mama fed me the bottle, and when I sucked down in such a hurry, Bernadette thought I might choke. Then I fell asleep, at which point, without a word, Mama stood up and walked out, closing the door behind her. Bernie watched through the peephole as Mama carried me down the hall into our apartment. Bernie said she worried about us all day, but because of the AP, she couldn't come and knock on our door. It nearly killed her knowing we were right next door and she couldn't get to us. Several times she opened her door a crack and called out, hoping Mama would hear her and open the door, but she didn't. So she paced around her apartment for hours trying to figure out what to do. She thought about calling the police, but she was worried they might not know how to do right by Mama and me. Bernie didn't trust anyone from outside. She thought about trying to crawl down the hall to us on her stomach, but she knew she wouldn't make it. That's when she remembered the old door she'd once noticed at the back of her hall linen closet. She ran to the closet, unloaded the bottom two shelves, and yanked them out so she could get close enough to press her ear up against the door. And she heard me crying on the other side. There was no knob on the door, but it wasn't boarded up or nailed shut, so she got a screwdriver and stuck it in where the knob should have been. A couple of jiggles and the door popped open like a jar of pickles. And there I was, lying on a pillow in the middle of the kitchen floor, still wearing that soggy tea towel, bawling with my little fists clenched tight as crab apples. Mama curled up in her raincoat next to me, sound asleep. From that day forward, Bernadette came and went through the old door that connected our two apartments. She taught Mama how to warm my bottles, dip her elbow into the water to see if the temperature in the tub was just right. And whatever Bernadette couldn't teach Mama to do for me, she did for me herself. Read to me, sang to me, taught me to read and write. Bernadette said she thought I was born lucky, but I think the day she came through the connecting door and found Mama and me on the kitchen floor was probably the exact moment my good luck kicked in. So I hope you're enjoying it. Lots of different way of living. Now we also need to remember that this book does take place before the internet was really a big thing. Before you could order anything you wanted on the internet, before you could find out anything you needed on the internet, and before people, really had lots of computers. But next time we will start then with chapter 4. And I'm going to end with another shot of the jelly beans. We haven't gotten to that yet, but thanks for listening and join me next time.